Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras. And coming up in today's newscast, Israel and the Arab Gulf states discuss regional non-aggression agreements. The government takes a stand against a controversial holiday tradition. And stay tuned because later we'll take an in-depth look at one of Israel's most marvelous medical methodologies. All right, to begin, while the political arena waits to hear the results of Prime Minister Netanyahu's latest pre-indictment hearings, Avigdor Lieberman of the Israel Beitenu party is announcing a new solution for forming a coalition, and he's expected to reveal it on Thursday. But it seems as though in the meantime, both Netanyahu and his rival Benny Gantz are waiting to see which side gives in first. Further, in efforts to shore up strength going into negotiations, Netanyahu offered last week to hold primaries within the Likud party. But just 24 hours later, he gave up the idea, instead reaffirming that he alone can take up the position, and this is far from the only recent political shifting to occur. So, joining us now to discuss these issues further, we have political analyst and chairman of the Oz Zionist Foundation, Zohar Tal. Zohar, thank you so much. So, why do you think Netanyahu, let's start with the primaries, why do you think Netanyahu called and then rescinded that offer?
Yeah, well, it was an idea. I don't think it is required by the, let's say, by the constitution of the Likud party to do that. And he thought that at this time he can either go to new primaries or have the Central Committee announce him as the only candidate. Everyone is looking ahead for the 21 days at the end of this term after if Netanyahu doesn't succeed and Gantz doesn't succeed. So everyone thinks that Gantz won't succeed as well and are looking for that part.
But then why, because like you said, the Constitution, nobody required the Likud to launch a primaries. So why say, oh, I'm going to launch primaries and then cancel it?
Yeah, well, I think he wanted to check the pulse.
Test the waters?
Yeah.
All right.
And he saw that there are other candidates. But frankly, I think that more than 1 million voters voted Likud headed by Benjamin Netanyahu. So it makes sense that he keeps on being the leader of the Likud party.
Okay, and then now let's kind of move on to Israel Beitenu, Avigdor Lieberman as the chairman. What do you think he's gonna say in his upcoming unity plan? Do you think anything is going to change from what we know already?
Yeah, well, we usually say that every guess wins. There's no way to know what is he going to suggest. However, we must remember that Avigdor Lieberman is right on one thing. No one can form a government which is not a unity government. Now, he was a key player in getting us into this situation, and now he found himself in a situation in which he has no influence. For the last couple of weeks, he had no influence on the event. So I think that now he tries to regain control. But what exactly will he suggest? I think no one knows.
All right. So, Tal, unfortunately, that's all our time, but thank you so much for coming in.
Okay, thanks for having me.
In other news, Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz is now confirming that with the backing of the Prime Minister, he's advancing historic non-aggression treaties with several of the Arab Gulf states. And while Katz seems to understand that full normalization is still unavailable, he says these deals will, quote, end the conflict and enable civilian cooperation until the signing of peace agreements. Further, Katz reportedly first unveiled these agreements to the United States and his Arab Gulf counterparts in September on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York, adding on Twitter that aside from boosting civilian cooperations, the deals will also work towards countering the threat of an increasingly belligerent Iran. And in his speech to the world body, he reiterated that Israel has a clear policy to advance ties and normalization with the Arab Gulf states, explaining that we have no conflict with the Gulf states, while we do have common interests.
Israel wants peace with all its neighbors. We signed peace agreements with Egypt and Jordan and are working today to advance our relations with many Arab states in the region.
These calls aren't without history or context, however, as Israel has long been trying to expand its cooperations with the Arab world. And Katz, who is also acting intelligence minister, has long been working to close the gap specifically between Israel and its neighboring nations of the region. For example, in July, he met with senior Arab officials in Abu Dhabi and in Bahrain during the U.S.-led Peace to Prosperity Summit. And then in November 2018, Katz famously traveled to Oman, where he repeated how Israel has a lot to offer in terms of water desalination, irrigation, agriculture, and medicine. And that, quote, "In my view, cooperation between Israel and the Gulf states can and should be expanded." Moving on, Israel has just been ranked the 11th most government-censored country in the world in terms of online media use. This, as a report from Comparatech, a company that actually provides tools to help compare tech services, says the Israeli government has made more than 5,500 requests to remove content from the web within the last decade. And the requests are from Google, Facebook, and Twitter, amongst others. But it's important to note that 30% of the requests for content removal are due to national security threats. That means requesting to take down materials that could lead to terrorist activities. And in comparison to other countries ranked in the report, Israel actually still falls behind the United States, plus Russia and Turkey, which take the top spots for content removal requests on Google specifically. Then, somewhat surprisingly, countries that you might have expected to be high up on the list, like China, are not ranked at all because China specifically bans many sites outright, preventing citizens from even accessing them in the first place. And in addition, the country is able to censor all internet content using its own technology. And finally, at any rate, in 2018, Prime Minister Netanyahu blocked what was called the Facebook bill, which was initially intended to require media sites to remove terrorist materials. However, Netanyahu ultimately chose not to go ahead with the bill, saying that it had been written in such a way that could potentially infringe on people's right to free speech as well. On another note, a one-year memorial service is underway on Sunday for the beloved American-Israeli Uri Folds. Folds, who was a great friend and regular guest on ILTV, was fatally stabbed in the back by a terrorist this time last year outside of a shopping complex in Gush Etzion, a region just outside of Jerusalem in the West Bank. And he was only 45 years old. But before Folds collapsed from his wounds, he was able to run down the terrorist and shoot him dead, preventing him from hurting more people, which the terrorist was in the middle of attempting to do. And so Folds was actually also posthumously awarded Israel's Medal of Valor too. Then now, the anniversary service features speakers including Folds' widow Miriam, along with a dedication to a new food truck that Folds had been working to create prior to his death. The idea had been to honor a friend named Yehoshua Friedberg, a lone soldier from Canada who was murdered by a terrorist back in 1993. And the truck is meant to help IDF soldiers get items that they need, especially food. Now, though, the truck will feature both Folds and Friedberg's faces side by side. Folds came to Israel with his family at the age of 18 and immediately joined the army. Then he spent the remainder of his life advocating for Israel on the international stage, supporting lone soldiers like himself, and more. In fact, he was also a rabbi, teacher, fundraiser, and karate teacher, among other professions. And he's survived by his wife, Miriam, who's responsible for carrying out this latest project, and their 4 children, Tamar, Naomi, Yakir, and Natan. Now, with Yom Kippur, or the Jewish Day of Atonement, quickly approaching, the Israeli Environmental Protection Ministry is taking aim at the time-honored yet highly controversial tradition, the ritual of kapparot. You see, in this ritual, Jews have a live chicken swung around their heads 3 times to symbolically transfer away their sins from the year. And then the chickens are slaughtered and donated to charity. But in the interest of preventing potential animal abuse, the ministry is suggesting that those who still partake in the tradition just donate money to charity instead, as many rabbis, by the way, have suggested in the past. Because specifically, according to the press release, it's not only potentially cruel to spin a living animal, but the birds are often held in poor and uncomfortable conditions before the kapparot takes place. And Israel may be among the latest to criticize the custom, but it's certainly not the first. For example, aside from protests in addition to more private actions, animal rights group United Poultry Concerns, or UPC, opened a lawsuit against Chabad of Irvine, California in 2016, alleging the malicious and intentional killing of animals. And there have been many similar suits filed across the world over the past few years as well. Additionally, there have been real abuses reported, such as throwing away the meat instead of donating it, and or starving the chickens ahead of the ritual, sometimes to death. Then many rabbis even prohibit the practice in general, as they view it as a pagan ritual. Proponents, however, say that the animals are bred for slaughter anyway, so gently swinging them around a little beforehand isn't any more cruel than the original plan. Speaking of conflict over religion, the last 2 political campaigns have caused a tremendous rift in Israel to only deepen between the secular and Orthodox or Haredi populations. And chief among the issues, as expected, are differences of opinion regarding drafting into the army, public transportation on the holidays and the Sabbath, and civil marriage. Well, the Ponemah organization has long been trying to bridge that gap between these demographics. And here now to tell us all about it is the CEO of the Ponemah organization, Inbar Harush-Giti. Thank you so much for coming in. Now, what can you tell us a little bit about Ponemah and kind of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so I think that Ponemah was established just because we feared of 1 year, just the 1 year that we had, being through 2 elections and then creating this terrible discourse in the Israeli society in which each party just explains why the other party is so terrible because the people it represents is so terrible for the entire Israeli society. We think this is the real threat on Israel. Ponemah means inside. It means we're looking inside on core issues that are what we think they are the biggest problem in the Israeli society today. And this is the problem of the security and the safety and everything that.
So yeah, I was going to say, you know, like what,
Yeah.
maybe if we can get to some of the specifics and
Yeah.
how you're targeting those issues.
So just as an example, the issue of draft, which was the reason why the government hasn't been able to establish now twice, this is a very interesting issue because about 70 years ago when Ben-Gurion was prime minister, he had a lot on his mind. He had a lot of issues. So he created the status quo agreement.
But that agreement was only for like 200 yeshiva students.
400 yeshiva students. And it was a very good idea at the time because, you know, this was a small issue. He had wars and issues to create,
Sure.
to create a country now. So he put it aside and he said, we will deal with it later. He knew this was a big issue, but he said,
Sure.
we should deal with it later. And then the problem was that the strategy of world leaders in Israel was to continue the status quo idea.
Which expanded.
Which
in
expanded.
the last 7
The
years,
reality
sure.
changed, the demography changed, the needs of the Israeli society have changed entirely. But now, an agreement after agreement, everybody wants to.
So what does Ponemah do?
What we do, we argue that someone has to give true solutions. These solutions have to be worked together in order to create a better Israeli society when we understand that we want to live together here. So when we looked at the issue of draft, we found out that the recent government that fell over this was about 200 yeshiva boys that would or not go to the IDF. We went to the IDF, we said, do you need any more soldiers? Apparently the IDF has many more soldiers than he needs just because we have a lot more kids that are 18 years old. So what should the Israeli society ask? How many yeshiva boys should or shouldn't go to the IDF, or the IDF service? What is the new IDF service in Israel? Who should serve? What kind of services do we have? Only the IDF? What about the hospitals
Sure, there's
in
other
Israel?
national services
What
that can be
about
done.
the education in Israel? What about welfare in Israel? Everybody strives for more working hands. So what is going on there?
All right. Well, so what is the solution though? You know,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
and how many Haredim and secular are really into this kind of solution to maybe just change what it means to do national service?
So what we think is that we should stop talking about a law of draft. This is not relevant for anything. We should talk about service. We think that each and every boy and girl, when they reach the age of 18, should have one of these possibilities. And then once they do one of these possibilities, everything in the Israeli society, including solidarity and including their sense of belonging, would be a lot better.
All right. Well, I love the idea. Inbar, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you.
All right, today is the first Sunday of October, and for many evangelical Christians around the world, that means that it's the day to pray for Jerusalem. 500,000 church groups around the world are expected to be praying for the peace in Jerusalem from their home churches and watching the service online, but some have made their way all the way to the Holy Land in celebration. And Now TV's Shanna Fold is on the scene from the Haas Promenade in Jerusalem, where she has more details on what's going on there. Shanna, I hear United States Ambassador David Friedman is the keynote speaker. Are people thrilled? It sounds like they are.
Yes, so he spoke at the top of the hour, and people here said it was so powerful. They loved it. He spoke about Jerusalem being the city of peace, and he gave a little bit of praise to President Trump, who he said made the bold move in bringing the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And people here are really in prayer.
Wow. All right, well, so how did all of this start, like this whole conference?
So there is a pastor, and his name is Pastor Stern, and he came to the Western Wall in the early 2000s. He started this organization in 2002 after he had a awakening when he was at the Western Wall. He said it was special, and he realized that he had been praying to the same God as the Jewish people, and he decided to make this movement. And every year they have this outdoor festival. They have pastors. There are actually 33 of them from Brazil who came here just for this event.
Wow. So what is like the express goal of everybody coming? You know, like what does it mean exactly to pray for Jerusalem?
So I wasn't really sure about that until I got here myself. And once I started speaking with people, they told me that the idea is togetherness, to bring all of the religions together, and that Christians and Jews and Islamic people are really praying toward the same goals. And basically that one thing I heard today is your struggles are my struggles. And I thought that was really beautiful.
I couldn't agree more. Shanna, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Jerusalem. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now as you might expect, English is one of the most commonly spoken languages on earth, and so the Israeli Ministry of Education is working overtime to make sure that ESL programs here are top of the line. And ILTV's Shanna Fold again has the story.
More because I need to think a lot before
More than 20% of the world speaks English. After Mandarin and Spanish, it's the third most spoken tongue in the world.
I cannot think a better language you can learn.
But if you were just in Israel, you could say it's one of the most popular second languages behind Hebrew or Arabic.
They actually talk face-to-face with a lot of people.
Some say English caught on because it's the language of technology. Some say it's due to colonialism and tourism. But one thing is for sure, if you speak English, you're at a major advantage. But there's a problem. Although students begin learning English at an early age, parents feel the level of instruction in the public school system is just not cutting it.
I learned from TV and movie.
Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon.
Magic the Gathering.
I used to live in Hawaii like 8 months.
Surveys have found that even students who finish with the highest level of English in school struggle to type out a simple email or communicate with other English speakers.
40 children in a class. It's possible to do it in class, but it's very difficult, let's be honest.
Noah Uziel, a mom and English teacher, has opened up her own private English school in her home.
We draw, we paint, we sing, we dance.
She says starting English lessons early is the key to success later on in life.
Let's play. I tell my daughter, okay, let's play in English.
Uziel focuses on making English fun for kids and has even come up with her own games. She says learning English as a child is the best gift a kid can get. Educators we spoke with say the shortage of English teachers here in Israel is due to a lack of qualified applicants.
There's kind of a circle. Once the level of teaching English in school is not good enough, then the students graduating from school will not have good enough English.
Tami Aviad is the head of the English department at Gordon Academic College in Haifa.
We put a lot of emphasis on the academic side of English teaching, which includes linguistics and literature, knowing the English culture, but also knowing the Israeli educational system.
Gordon is one of 6 universities and colleges chosen by the Education Ministry to teach the next generation of English teachers.
We try to call anyone who is making Aliyah or wants to explore the possibilities here in Israel to come to Gordon and get out with something very practical in your hand. It's a good opportunity. It's a way to start life in Israel.
The program puts potential teachers through a 2-year training or just a 1-year course for native speakers. The Education Ministry believes it could recruit at least 1,000 teachers. The incentive? A $6,000 scholarship for every student to get their teaching certificate.
Even if I come into class feeling upset about something, it disappears within 5 minutes.
For more information regarding the International Student Program at the Gordon Academic College of Education, please log on to their website or email them at registeril@gordon.ac.il. All right, now we are often talking about medical and technological breakthroughs in Israel, which advance the best practices in their fields. But beyond the new tech and pharmacology, there's a surprisingly colorful and unique medicine in Israel too. So recently, I went to explore this unexpected side of our healthcare system.
So we're on our way right now to Ichilov Hospital. I am going to be clownified, and I cannot wait. Do you know how to clown? You want to You want to be a clown? I've always been a clown, but now we're making it official, and it's for a good cause. We're all gonna be clowns! I'm gonna be a clown today!
Hello, welcome to Israel!
These are the clowns of the famous Israeli Dream Doctors Project, Max, Shemesh, and Olive. Medical clowns who traverse the halls of Israel's hospitals, cheering up patients and staff alike while putting the fun back into fundamentally essential healthcare. But as anyone in the treatment centers will tell you, what these dream doctors accomplish every day goes far beyond just simple jokes and gags, especially, of course, with kids.
אני חושבת שזה ממש ממש עוזר לילדים, זה משמח אותם, הם מחכים לזה.
אתם פשוט מרימים פה את האווירה ואתם עושים שהכל יהיה פה שמח, ובכלל אין פה תחושה של בית חולים. זה החלק הכי מדהים פה.
Because these medical clowns are there for some of the hardest moments in a patient's life, however, they're also working hard on creating some of the best moments through their amazing Dream Doctors project and the Clownbulance. Established in 2015 by Shemesh, aka Smadar Haupak, and her co-founding medical clown Michal Korman, this charming chariot ferries sick kids around the country while fulfilling their wishes. And over 100 medical clowns are active in the project across the country, offering a retreat from the routine and even painful treatments.
For example, yesterday there was a teenager, a child, from the very north, from Amirim. He wants to meet all the actors from the very famous TV show Eretz Nehederet. So they went there and he took photos with all the celebrities, all the actors, yeah, and he showed how it's happened and what they do there while they're filming.
It was last summer, and the kid wanted to fly. And then we found this pilot school outside of Herzliya. And so we brought the kid, and it turned out to be 2 kids eventually, because it was a really cool day. And they flew in a small airplane. They did an hour flight above Israel.
And there are many, many more examples too, from becoming a model to recording a hit new song.
Sometimes, unfortunately, it's their last wish. So it's really important for us to finish the relationship we have with them on a fun note.
The main thing is that we want to empower this child and the family so they have much more power to get back to the hospital, to the next hospitalized, next surgery, and etc.
And so to learn more about these medical marvels, I dug deep and found the courage to become one of the fold. And with that, we were off. But as fun as clowning around can be, there's still a serious backdrop behind every bright red nose.
A clown accepts everything. He has no preference to sadness or funny stuff. He accepts everything. So with this approach, we come to the children and we accept whatever is going on with them. If it's death, then we are there. If it's healing, we are there.
This project really involves the people actually around us. People get to share and to be a part of it in many, many different ways. And right now what we're doing is crowdfunding. We have a special project, a Give Back project, where people can donate and participate and they get back. Of course they'll be a part of our project and get the satisfaction of seeing a kid and his family that really need this boost of energy, getting it in the best level possible and continuing this journey of the clown in therapy. He is so happy and sad, angry, afraid, hopeful, in love. He is a clown.
All right, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight we'll have partly cloudy skies with a low of 72 or 22 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow will be sunny and warm with a high of 83 or 28 degrees Celsius. And that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.48 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook and follow us on our Instagram. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.